Before kingdoms rose or warriors conquered, before chariots thundered and banners flew in the wind, there was a man whose name shook nations, Naaman, a commander feared in battle, honored in the palace, praised in every street, a man who could defeat armies, yet could not defeat the enemy eating his skin. But the miracle that would change his destiny did not come from a king, a prophet, or a soldier. It began with a little girl, a captive, a nobody in the eyes of the world. Yet her faith would shake 2 kingdoms and rewrite the fate of a mighty man. Because sometimes God hides world-changing miracles in the smallest voices. And this is the story of the warrior who needed healing, the prophet who refused to come out, and the little girl whose courage became the key to a miracle. Brace yourself. This journey will break your heart, mend your faith, and remind you that no one is too small for God to use. The sun rose like a fiery crown over the kingdom of Aram, spilling golden light across the mountains and shimmering against soldiers' armor. Horses thundered across the training grounds, dust swirling as warriors shouted commands. And at the center of it all rode Naaman, the undefeated commander, the king's right hand, the pride of an entire nation. His armor glowed in the sunlight. Soldiers stepped aside when he passed. Even children pointed and whispered stories of his victories. He looked every bit like the hero they believed him to be. But heroes bleed too. As Naaman dismounted his horse and removed his metal glove, his hand revealed the truth he hid beneath all the glory. White patches of leprosy spreading across his skin. He quickly covered it again, glancing around to make sure no soldier noticed. Nobody must know, not yet. Great men may lead armies, but even great men can lose battles inside their own skin. 2 Kings 5:1. Naaman walked into his magnificent home, greeted by servants who bowed deeply. The atmosphere was warm, filled with the smell of spiced bread and burning oil lamps. But one pair of eyes saw what others could not. A small Israelite girl, no older than 10, was sweeping a corner of the compound. Her clothes were simple, her hair tied back, her expression gentle yet alert. She was a captive taken during war, yet she carried herself with a quiet grace that didn't look like slavery. She watched Naaman carefully, her eyes lingering on his stiff movements, the hidden pain in his face. Naaman tried to scratch his arm subtly. The girl coughed loudly. Naaman froze. Then she tilted her head innocently, as if she hadn't just caught the mighty general clawing his skin like a goat that ran inside Pepper Farm. A tiny smile tugged at her lips. Humor, just enough to lighten the heaviness. But her heart held something deeper than humor. Compassion. That night, after the house grew quiet and the oil lamps flickered softly, the little girl approached Naaman's wife. She hesitated, clutching the edge of her dress, then spoke with a courage far bigger than her size.
My lady, if only my master would see the prophet in Samaria, he would be healed.
2 Kings 5:3. Her voice trembled at first, but the faith behind it stood firm. Naaman's wife stared at the child. Where did this confidence come from? Why would a little slave girl care so much? The girl lifted her eyes, bright, steady, innocent.
At first, but the faith behind it stood firm. There is a God in Israel. His prophet can help him.
Naaman, who had been standing near the doorway, overheard her. He scoffed loudly.
A prophet in Israel? In Israel? Healing me? Child, you have imagination.
But even as he mocked, the seed took root in his wife's heart. And seeds grow. The next morning, Naaman stood before the king of Aram in the great palace. The king, a round man with a rounder appetite, was indulging in fruit when Naaman entered. One look at his commander's trembling hand, and the king's expression hardened. "Who wounded you?" he thundered. "My king, it is not a wound," Naaman replied softly. "It is leprosy." The palace guards gasped. One of them dropped his spear dramatically, earning a sharp look from the king. But Naaman continued,
There is said to be a prophet in Israel, a prophet who can heal.
A heavy silence filled the hall. Then, with fierce loyalty, the king rose from his throne and placed his hand on Naaman's shoulder.
Then go. Take my finest chariots, my gold
"My
horse.
silver, my letter of authority, let nothing stand between you and your healing." And so, Naaman rode out of Aram with a grand escort, horses pounding the earth, banners fluttering in the desert wind, gifts piled high in his chariot. Behind him, at the edge of the courtyard, the little Israelite girl watched him leave. The wind brushed her face as she whispered a prayer beneath her breath. "God of Israel, make him whole." Sometimes the greatest miracles begin with the smallest voice. Matthew 18:4. The desert sun blazed high as Naaman's caravan thundered across the land. Dust whirled behind his chariots like a tail of fire. The clatter of hooves echoed through valleys and rocky paths as he journeyed deep into Israel. Naaman sat tall in his chariot, armored, proud, and visibly uncomfortable. Every bump on the road made him wince. Leprosy stings worse when pride won't let you show weakness. His servants rode behind him, whispering among themselves,
You think this prophet will shout, wave his hands, call down fire? At least let him sprinkle something. All prophets sprinkle something.
Naaman pretended not to hear, but inside he secretly agreed. A commander deserved at least some dramatic thunder. As they crossed into Samaria, it revealed a quiet village, a place far too humble for the grand arrival that was happening. And then Naaman's chariot rolled to a stop before a small weathered house, not a palace, not a temple, just a simple, unpainted, unimpressive home with a thatched roof slightly leaning to one side. Naaman frowned. This was the great prophet? This? Maybe he's inside doing prophet things, one servant offered nervously. Prophet things? Another asked. You know, staring at the sky, humming, floating, something mysterious. Naaman rolled his eyes. Even his disease was confused. He adjusted his armor, stood tall, and prepared himself for the dramatic welcome he believed he deserved. He waited and waited and waited. Nothing, no drum, no incense, no prophet stepping out with glowing eyes, not even a goat bleating prophetically. Just silence. Naaman finally cleared his throat, loudly. Still nothing. A servant whispered, "Sir, perhaps knock?" Naaman, offended that he should knock like a common man, motioned angrily. A servant rushed forward and knocked. The door creaked open, and out stepped not Elisha, just a messenger, a young man, dusty feet, simple clothes, not a prophet, not even a prophet's assistant, just a messenger. He bowed slightly and said in the calmest, most casual voice ever, "My master says, go wash yourself in the Jordan River 7 times. Your flesh will be restored and you will be clean." 2 Kings 5:10. Then he shut the door. Just like that. No drama, no prayers, no rituals, no prophet standing outside to at least pretend he cared. Naaman was stunned. Then he exploded. "What?" Naaman roared. Servants scattered like chickens when someone claps near them. Naaman paced up and down, armor clanking, face red with fury. "Does he know who I am? I traveled with chariots, horses, gifts, and he sends a messenger? A messenger?" He threw his hands up dramatically.
I expected him to come out! Call on his God! Wave his hand! Be like...
Like a real prophet, he stomped toward his chariot. And wash in the Jordan, that muddy river? Are the rivers of Damascus not better than all the waters in Israel? 2 Kings 5:12. One servant muttered under his breath, "He does have a point. The Jordan looks like it needs healing too." Naaman whirled around. "Mount the chariots, we are going home." But before Naaman could climb into the chariot, two of his bravest servants stepped forward. They bowed low, but their voices were steady and filled with courage that even Naaman respected. "My father," one said gently, "if the prophet had told you to do something great, something difficult, something heroic, wouldn't you have done it?" The words cut deeper than any sword, because they were true. Naaman paused. The servant continued, "Why then not do this simple thing? Wash and be clean." Silence fell. Even the wind seemed to wait. Naaman's shoulders, once rigid with pride, lowered slowly. For the first time in a long time, the mighty commander looked human. Pride stands tall, but healing begins with kneeling. Naaman closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. Then he nodded, a small nod, but heaven noticed it. And so did the servants, who exhaled loudly in relief. The greatest miracles often wait on the other side of obedience. The Jordan River stretched before Naaman like a long ribbon of muddy water, glistening under the afternoon sun. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't impressive. It didn't look holy. Naaman dismounted slowly. His servants held their breath. The birds chirped as if gossiping loudly about him. The mighty commander of Aram, a man who commanded armies, standing before a river that looked like it lost the battle of cleanliness. He clenched his fists. Was this really God's method? No sword swings, no thunder, no divine flash, just water, muddy water. Sometimes God hides healing in places we don't respect. Naaman removed his armor, each metallic piece falling loudly on the ground, his chest plate, his bracers, his helmet. With every piece he dropped, it was as a layer of pride loosened. Finally, he stood bare-chested, vulnerable, human. The patches of leprosy were visible now, white against his bronze skin. The servants looked away respectfully, but Naaman saw their sadness. He stepped closer to the water. A servant whispered silently, "God, help our master." Naaman took his first step into the Jordan River. Water splashed, cold, shockingly cold. It wrapped around his feet, not like a healing stream, but like a test. He walked deeper until the water reached his waist. The sky began to dim slightly. Naaman inhaled deeply. His heart pounded. Dip one. He sank beneath the surface. Murky, unclear, swirling around him. He came up quickly. No change. A servant muttered, "One down. 6 to go." Dip 2. Still nothing. The river clung to his skin like an uncomfortable blanket. Dip 3. He paused longer underwater this time. Came up slowly, his face strained. No difference. His servants exchanged anxious looks. Dip 4. He resurfaced, breathing heavier, eyes searching his arms desperately. Nothing. Obedience is hardest when results refuse to show. Naaman's jaw tightened. He was shaking, part fear, part frustration. Dip 5. His hands trembled as he rose. Still the same skin, same patches, same pain. He clenched his teeth. His pride screamed at him to stop. "This is foolishness," he muttered. A servant stepped forward gently.
"Master, please, 2 more."
Naaman closed his eyes. Tears formed, not only from disease, but from humiliation. He forced himself back down. Dip 6. Longer this time. He stayed under until bubbles rose slowly from his nose. The water swallowed him, burying his hopes, his fears, his shame. He rose slowly, exhausted. He looked at his arms. Nothing. Naaman's heart broke. His strength faded. His hope wavered like a dying candle. Silence. Then, one servant stepped toward the water and whispered with trembling emotion, "My master, if God says 7, he means 7. Naaman looked at him. No anger this time, only surrender. Miracles live in the last step. Naaman inhaled deeply. He raised his head toward the sky. Then he sank beneath the water one last time. Dip 7. Everything goes silent. The screen goes black underwater. Heartbeats echo. Then, a burst of light under the water, a shock wave of clarity. Particles shimmer around his body. Naaman rises out of the water like someone emerging into a new world. His skin is clean, smooth, clear, shining like a newborn child's. Exactly as the scripture says. 2 Kings 5:14. His breath catches. He looks at his arm, his hand, his chest. No pain, no scars, no shame, no disease, just healing, absolute healing. A sob escapes him, not of sorrow, but overwhelming relief. Naaman falls to his knees in the river, water splashing around him, and lifts his arms toward heaven. There is no God in all the earth except the God of Israel. 2 Kings 5:15. His servants cheer. Some fall to their knees. Some cry. Some jump around like excited children. When pride went down, healing came up. The sun dipped low as Naaman and his servants journeyed back toward Elisha's house. But this time, the ride felt different, lighter, calmer, almost holy. The leprosy was gone, the pain was gone, the shame was gone. Naaman kept staring at his hands, turning them over as if afraid the miracle would disappear. His servants kept sneaking glances too, whispering excitedly. One servant kept saying, "Look at his skin, it's like baby's skin." Another added, "Commander Naaman, sir, respectfully, your skin is finer than mine." Naaman would chuckle softly, a sound that hadn't escaped his lips in a long time. When they reached Elisha's home again, Naaman didn't wait for a welcome. He jumped off his chariot, rushed forward, and stood before the humble door. This time, he didn't expect drama. He didn't expect honor. He didn't expect a prophet to bow or flatter him. He simply stood like a man transformed, clean skin, humbled heart. Elisha finally came out. His presence was still calm, almost glowing in simplicity. No noise, no theatrics, just a man who walked with God. Naaman bowed deeply, something he had never done for any man. His voice trembled.
Now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel.
2 Kings 5:15. Healing heals more than the body, it heals belief. Naaman gestured and his servants brought forward the gifts. Silver, gold, costly garments. Everything he carried from Aram. Naaman smiled gratefully.
Please, take this gift from your servant.
But Elisha raised a hand gently.
As surely as the Lord lives whom I serve, I will accept nothing.
2 Kings 5:16. Naaman was stunned. A prophet refusing gifts? What kind of holy man was this? He insisted again, but Elisha stood firm. Naaman's voice softened as humility washed through him. Then, please allow me to take some earth from this land.
For I will no longer worship any except the Lord of Israel.
2 Kings 5:17. Elisha nodded, granting the request. Naaman bowed again, tears in his eyes. Elisha smiled, warm, assuring, fatherly. Go in peace. Naaman exhaled, relieved. Even prophets understood awkward workplace situations. But as Naaman and his servants turned to leave, their hearts full, their faith renewed, someone else was watching. Gehazi, Elisha's servant, eyes narrow, heart racing, greed whispering in his ear. He watched the silver. He watched the gold. He watched Naaman leaving with treasure untouched. His thoughts swirled like dark smoke. My master spared this Aramean and let him go without taking anything? 2 Kings 5:20. He clenched his fist. As surely as the Lord lives, I will run after him and get something from him. The sky dims slightly. A hawk cries in the distance. Gehazi slipped out quietly, chasing after Naaman's departing chariots, his footsteps echoing like the beginning of tragedy. Naaman's caravan had gone some distance when a servant spotted a man running toward them.
Commander! Someone approaches! Is everything all right?
Naaman
Is everything all right?
recognized the man instantly.
Is everything all right?
He asked. Gehazi, panting dramatically like someone who ran faster than honesty, replied,
Everything is fine. My master sent me 2 young prophets.
Young prophets just arrived and he would like some silver and garments for them. Naaman smiled warmly, his heart still fresh from healing. Without hesitation, he said, Of course, please take double. 2 Kings 5:23. He loaded Gehazi with silver and clothes. Gehazi bowed, but his eyes glinted with greed. When Gehazi returned, hiding the treasures in the house, Elisha was waiting for him. Elisha looked at him with prophet eyes, eyes that saw beyond lies. Where have you been, Gehazi? Gehazi swallowed hard. Your servant did not go anywhere. Silence. Then Elisha stepped closer, voice low, heavy.
Was not my spirit with you when the man stepped down from his chariot to meet you? 2
Kings 5:26. Gehazi's face drained of color. Elisha continued, Is this the time to take money, or garments, or treasures? For this you have done. The leprosy that clung to Naaman will now cling to you and your descendants. 2 Kings 5:27. A wind rushes through the scene. A sudden brightness flashes, then fades. Gehazi gasps, looking down at his hands, white with leprosy. He stumbles backward with a cry. Greed steals what grace gives. Gehazi runs out of the house, his figure small against the fading evening light. 6 powerful life lessons from Naaman's story 1. God can use anyone, even people the world overlooks. The miracle began through a young captive girl. Never underestimate small voices, small positions, or small beginnings. 2. Your breakthrough is often hidden in simple instructions. Naaman expected something dramatic, but healing came through a simple act. Sometimes the answer you need isn't deep, it's obedience. 3. Pride can block blessings. Humility unlocks miracles. Naaman almost missed his healing because he felt the Jordan River was beneath him. Pride delays what humility could have delivered. 4. Surround yourself with people who can correct you with love. His servants encouraged him gently when his emotions blinded him. Good friends save you from bad decisions. 5. True servants of God don't manipulate or exploit people. Elisha refused Naaman's gifts. He showed that God's power is not for sale. Integrity speaks louder than miracles. 6. Greed destroys what grace gives. Gehazi gained silver, but lost purity. When you chase shortcuts, you lose long-term blessings. Thanks for watching, family. See you soon on our next story. This is the Christian fruit.
In the quiet of the desert, I find the voice of the divine.